Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare. One more time, a little louder, everyone. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama One more time, Bolu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Bolo one more time. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be covering Caitanya Caritamrta, Adi-Lila chapter 1, verse 95 through 102, about 7 to 8 verses. So without further delay, we will start. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol, Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parigvacharya Stotra Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parigvacharya Stotra Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivachari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunakira Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Maya Pradhan Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Yamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Sami Vita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namini. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namini. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaura Bani Pracharini. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharani. Jaya Jaya Sri Krishna, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jayo Jayo Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So today we will be speaking and discussing on Caitanya Charitamrta, Adi-Lila Chapter 1 verse 95 through 102. We will chant 195 together, and I will just go verse by verse on all the other verses. Yanhara prasade itamohaya nasha tamonasha kari kareta vira prakasha. Yanhara prasada itamohaya nasha tamonasa kari kareta vira prakasha. Yanhara prasade itamohaya nasha tamonasha kari kare tarvera prakasha. Devotees would like to chant.
Yanahara prasadi tamohaya nasha tamonasha kari kari tatvira prakasha.
Yanhara prasadi etamohaya nasa tamonasa kari kari tatvita prakasha.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yanhara prasade tamohaya nasha tamonasha kari kare tatvera prakasha.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yahara prasade tamahaya nasa tamonasa kari kare tatvera prakasha.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll go for the word for word. The synonyms and translation. Yanhara pus, prasade by the grace. A this. Tama darkness. Haya is. Nasa destroyed. Tama darkness. Nasha destruction. Kari doing. Kare thus. Tadvera of the truth. Prakasha discovery. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shiva Prabhupada Ki Jai. By the grace of Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda, this darkness of ignorance is removed and the truth is brought to light. So what I will do is, because it's covering 7 to 8 verses, I will just speak a little bit, share actually a little bit of my realization from each of these verses and my thoughts, and also reading from different quotes from different sannyasis. So here in verse 195, if you remember earlier last week from Vishnugada Prabhu's class, he was mentioning from verse 190 that the darkness of ignorance called Kaitava is the way of cheating, which begins with religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Lord Caitanya, in this verse 195, Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda appeared just to remove the darkness of ignorance so that we can be brought to light. And if again, going back to last week's class from Vishnugada Prabhu, the reason we have been sitting in this darkness of ignorance, the reason that we have been so, I hate to use the word nestled, but so comfortable, nestled so nicely, right? In this mode of ignorance and the darkness was because we think that the way of progressing materially is by the way of cheating. And how do we cheat? We cheat by beginning with religion. Then we cheat through economic development. Then we cheat through sense gratification. Then we cheat through liberation. We are finding ways, and that is the deepest and the most destructive way in last week's class by Vishnugada Prabhu, that the way of cheating is the darkness of ignorance. And here Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is so nicely reminding us that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they appeared to bring us out of that darkness. Why? Because the darkness is so detrimental to devotional service to the Lord. And one may ask, okay, but how is Lord Chaitanya and how is Lord Nityananda bringing us out of that, bringing us out of the darkness into the truth of light? And I would like us to reflect on this third verse of the Sri Guru Vandana, one of my favorite English translation of that verse. As he opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. So one may ask, how do I come out of this darkness of ignorance by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda? It says here, only by the mercy of the spiritual master. Because the spiritual master is opening our darkened eyes, is filling our hearts with transcendental knowledge, which is bringing us to the truth in light, as it says in this verse. And the darkness of ignorance is removed and the truth is brought to light. And the truth can only be brought to light by the mercy of the spiritual master, because he will open the eyes that has been darkened by ignorance, and he will fill our heart with transcendental knowledge. And by his ecstatic prema, if we look at our spiritual masters, right? All spiritual masters. There are so many spiritual masters in ISKCON, but they're all one. That is the Guru Tattva. One Guru is not better than the other. When as soon as we start saying, oh, one Guru is better than the other, then we have created fragmentation. We have created segregation. We have created confusion. We have created groupism, and that is not Srila Prabhupada's teachings. All the gurus are one, every one of them. They may have different moods of how they fill our hearts with transcendental knowledge, but the knowledge is the same. It's not different. It's the same, and that is how they exhibit. That is how they exude, and that is how they emanate their Krishna prema. And when they do that, our ignorance get destroyed. Our ignorance get destroyed. And that is so important for us. That is why it's so important that we understand the importance of having a spiritual master, the importance of having a guru. Lord Nityananda is the original spiritual master who is coming to teach us how important it is to remove the darkness of ignorance by the mercy of the spiritual master. And Lord Caitanya, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Radha Krishna combined, he came to get us out of the darkness of ignorance, the cheating mentality, right? By spreading the chanting of the holy name and waking us up from the dormant stage, right? Jeev Jago, wake up sleeping souls, wake up sleeping souls. So both Lord Caitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who brought the holy name, who spread the holy name, who inundated the holy name, and Lord Nityananda, who was the original spiritual master. Both of them appeared, one in the form of a spiritual master, and one as the Supreme Lord himself, appeared to get us out of this crazy material world of ignorance and bring us to the light. Once Mahatma Vidur, in Mahabharata, Vidur advised King Dhritarashtra not once, but many times, to concentrate his mind and worship the Supreme Lord Krishna just by chanting the holy name of the Lord. And gradually it will dissipate. Dissipate in literal means disappear. It will remove all inauspiciousness and we will be brought to light. This was 5,000 years ago. Vidur is advising King Dhritarashtra. And then 530 something, 40 years ago, Lord Caitanya appeared as Radha Krishna combined, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he gave us the chanting of the holy name, and the chanting of the holy name is none different from Krishna himself. That is what's going to bring us to light. So we'll go to the next verse, 196. And Tattvavastu Krishne Krishna Bhakti Prema Rupa Nama Sankirtana Sabha Ananda Swarupa. Translation: the absolute truth is Sri Krishna, and loving devotion to Sri Krishna exhibited in pure love is achieved through congregational chanting of the holy name, which is the essence of all bliss. So here, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is saying, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda appeared to remove us from the darkness of ignorance and to bring us to light. And he's teaching us how. We have to wake up. We have to get off the couch. They say couch, there's this term used in America, couch potatoes, right? We have to get off the couch and stop being couch potatoes. We have to get off our behinds, as they say. Engage in devotional service to the Lord. How? Clearly says in 196, Harinam Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy name, which cleanses the mirror of our hearts, right? If we remember the Shishastaka, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, it cleanses the heart, the mirror of our heart. In Caitanya Charitamrta, Adi-Lila chapter 20, verse 20, it states, let there be all victory for the chanting of the holy name of Lord Krishna, which can cleanse the mirror of the heart and stop the miseries of the blazing fire of material existence. That chanting is the waxing moon that spreads the white lotus of good fortune for all living entities. It is the life and soul of all education. The chanting of the holy name of Krishna expands the blissful ocean of transcendental life. It gives a cooling effect to everyone and enables one to taste full nectar at every step. So here in 196, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is reminding us, loving devotion to Sri Krishna exhibited in pure love. And how can that be achieved? How can we achieve pure love and devotional service? Answers very clearly through the congregational chanting of the holy name. The more we chant the holy name, the more we go out and do Harinam Sankirtan, the more we chant in devotee association, the more we chant in groups, we will slowly attain the love that is needed to achieve for devotional service. We'll have the taste. And it clearly states the key word here is victory. And this is so beautifully explained by Lord Caitanya. This prayer was given to him. He has given us a promise. Lord Caitanya in the first verse says, let there be all victory for the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. What more do we need? We got the promise from the Lord that if we just stick with the chanting of the holy name, there will be victory. Jai, Jai, Jai. There will be victory. It's a promise given by the Lord. The Lord never lies. Especially if he wants to take us back to Godhead, back to his home. He never lies. So we just got to stick with the process. Congregational chanting, Harinam Sankirtan. And the more we do that, the more we will begin to achieve the love that is required to perform devotional service. And the more we achieve the mood, the more we taste the love of devotional service, the more it's going to bring us out of the darkness of ignorance into the light. If we go to the next verse, 197, Surya Chandra Bahire Ratamase Vinashe Bahir Vastu Gata Pata Adi Se Prakashe. Translation: the sun and moon dissipates the darkness of the external world and thus reveal external material objects like pots and pans. If we turn the light off in the room at night, everything becomes dark. We turn the light on, then we see it. The sun and the moon can only make the material objects disappear, but temporarily. When the sun goes down, everything becomes dark. We can't see. It's temporary. Next morning, the sun comes up, everything we can see. But it's temporary. It's temporary. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is reminding us here that what sets and what rises morning and night will only make the material objects disappear, but only temporary. But can it remove the darkness from our heart permanently? Can it make the internal core of our hearts clean? Can it make the dirt disappear? Yes, if the sun rises up, we can see the dust on the desk, on the table, on the, on the floor, on the shelves. Yeah, we can see temporarily, but when the sun sets and the moon comes and there's no light, we can't see any of the dust that's accumulating. It's not visible to our eyes. But next morning, when we see light, when the sun comes out, oh, there's dust, I have to do some Windexing. But we cannot see the dirt in our hearts. None of us can look in our hearts and see, oh my God, there's so much dirt. The sun and the moon can do that. So in the next verse, in 198, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj so nicely says that, but these two brothers, Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda, dissipate the darkness of the inner core of the heart, and thus they help one meet the two kinds of Bhagavats, persons or things in relationship with the personality of Godhead. So to clean our hearts from years and lifetimes, I think for me, the word that is scary is lifetimes of dirt, build-up of residue, the grind, the attachments, right? It's just building up, building up, building up, building up. Because the sun and the moon, when it rises and it sets, it will only disappear temporarily, make the material object disappear, not the internal core of our hearts. But Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda appeared just to clean our hearts from lifetimes of dirt and grime and buildup and residue and attachments. The biggest thing is the attachments sitting within our hearts, right? And they gave us the formula. Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared almost 540 years ago, and Lord Nityananda, who was the original spiritual master, both appeared and gave us the formula. Two Bhagavat, the book Bhagavat and the present Bhagavat, right? It's clearly stated here. The two Bhagavats, if we go to the next verse, 199, it clearly states one of the Bhagavats is the great scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other is the pure devotee absorbed in the mellows of loving devotion. So, in order for us to clean our hearts from years and years and years of dirt, lifetimes, I remember, and I've said this before, but I think it's funny that when my second daughter Vishaka was getting her grain ceremony for my spiritual master, this was on Gaur Purnima in 2002. She was born in 2001. Yes, 2002. And my spiritual master would, when he would give grain ceremony, he would put the child on his lap, and you feed them kheer. And Vishaka loved anything sweet. I think she still does, but she did more than when she was a baby. So he gave her a spoon of kheer, and he thought he was done. And she just kept asking for more, like literally more. And he literally fed her, I think about 5 times or 7 times, because she didn't want him to stop. And I remember him telling Vishaka, saying, Vishaka, you are 7 months old going on 92 years old, is what he said. He said, and then he said, you've been around here you have come back too many times. This better be your last, he said. So we have been here so many times. We don't know. But Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda has given us a formula. 2. The book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat clearly states in this verse, right? the great scripture Srimad Bhagavatam, and the pure devotee who is absorbed in the mellows of devotion. Now, if you see the key word that's joining the two phrases is and. One of the Bhagavat is the great scripture Srimad Bhagavatam. And he didn't say or. And the other is the pure devotee absorbed in the mellows of devotion, of loving devotion. So if we take a very clear material example, if we want to learn a subject in school, say math, history, science, whatever, right? We have to find the teacher, which is the person who knows the subject, which is the book. We cannot learn the subject without the teacher and not the book. And we cannot learn the subject with the book and not the teacher. We need both. We need both. That's just no getting around learning a subject without the teacher or the book. Every teacher in school will have a book that the student has to learn from. And the teacher refers to that book and teaches from that book. Anything in material life, if we want to learn something, we need the person, which is the teacher, and the book, which is the knowledge. They go hand in hand, not or, not person or book. It's person and book. Similarly, in Krishna consciousness, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is teaching us we need the book, which is our scriptures, and the person, which is the spiritual master, because both the book and the person are absorbed in the loving exchanges of the Supreme Lord, and we need both. We cannot reject one and keep the other, thinking that we can make it in spiritual life. Impossible. I remember, I think it was Chandramali Swami's class. One time he mentioned that Krishna consciousness is not cheap. Actually, Srila Prabhupada said that. Now I remember from one of his transcriptions lectures. People think Krishna is cheap. People think Krishna consciousness is cheap. It is not cheap. It is a science. We cannot reject one and keep the other. We need the person, which is the spiritual master, and we need the book Bhagavat. So here, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is teaching us, again, if we read that verse so carefully, it's joining the system with and. I mean, the two sentences with and. One of the Bhagavat is the great scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other is the pure devotee absorbed. He never said or. So in order for us to come out of the darkness of ignorance and to be brought to the light, we have to perform devotional service, because devotional service will clean our hearts. And in order for us to get taste of love to perform devotional service, we have to engage in congregational chanting, because the chanting of the Harinam Sankirtan in the whole of the holy name, in Harinam Sankirtan, in Kirtan and Bhajan, will clean our hearts and will remove the years and lifetimes of dirt and buildup. But in order to do that, we need help. And the two Bhagavats, we need help. Why do we need help? Because we cannot see the dirt in our hearts. We can see the dirt on the tables, the chairs, the dining room, the floor, the shelf, but we can't see it in our heart. So we don't know how to make that dirt disappear from our hearts. But Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda says, yes, there is a formula. The two Bhagavats, the book Bhagavat, which is our great scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the pure devotee, the spiritual master who is absorbed in mellows of loving devotion. That's the formula. Krishna consciousness is a science. It is not sentimental. It's completely scientific. It's cause and effect. If you do this properly, this is the result. If you don't do this properly, this is the result. It's cause and effect. It's completely an chemical equation, you know. If you put sodium and chlorine, you're going to get sodium chloride, right? If you put one or the other, you're going to get the end product. It's a science. If you behave this way, this is going to be the result. If you behave badly, this is the result. If you behave good, this is the result. It's completely a science. So here, Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda, imagine the Supreme Personality of Godhead came 540 years ago in Bengal, in Mayapur, right? Appeared for the sake of fallen souls like us, and is telling us, my dear devotees, you need two Bhagavats to save you, the book and the spiritual master. He's giving us an instruction. He's giving us the formula. So if we go to the next verse, verse 100, the translation, through the actions of these two Bhagavats, I'm sorry, let me read the verse. Duiba Bhagavatattvara diya bhakti rasa tanhara hridaye tanre preme haya vasha. Through the actions of these two Bhagavats, the Lord instills the mellows of transcendental loving service into the heart of the living being. And thus the Lord, in the heart of his devotee, comes under the control of the devotee's love. So beautiful. If it says through the actions of these two Bhagavats, very clearly. He did not say one of the Bhagavat. He says these two Bhagavat. If we carefully read and understand this verse, right? Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is saying very clearly that it will take the action of both the Bhagavats, that is the person, which is the spiritual master, and the book Bhagavat, which is the scriptures, for the Supreme Lord to instill the sweetness of the transcendental loving service in our hearts. And what does that mean? Well, let's see in the next verse. 101. Beautifully. The first wonder is that, okay, let me not touch on this one first. So what does that mean? That means hearing, chanting, reading, sadhu sangha. Hearing, chanting, reading, sadhu sangha. If we want the sweetness of the transcendental loving service to be instilled in our hearts, then we must hear. We must read, we must chant, and associate with the devotees of the Lord. We cannot choose one or the other. It's just impossible to choose one or the other. I know for me and many of us on this line, right? If we don't attend one morning's Bhagavatam class, we can feel something is missing in our day. I'm sure many of us would attest to that if we just miss one day of Bhagavatam class, you know, probably it's work, meetings, whatever, we can feel something is missing. My morning did not go well. You know, something is missing in my morning formula, right? Something is missing in my cup of tea, as they say, right? Because we did not hear the class. Because why? Our hearts is now attracted to hearing the class. We are feeding our soul by hearing, chanting, reading, and devotee association. It clearly states actions of these two Bhagavats It did not say one or the other. It said one and the other. We must be very, very careful to really understand how important this verse is that Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is clearly telling us. It takes two, the teacher and the book. And the book is our great scriptures, and the teacher is the spiritual master. Yesterday, I really liked what Dronacharya Prabhu mentioned in his class, where he said we should act and behave in a way that will attract the Lord, and he is captured. We should not act and behave to be seen. That really resonated with me. It really stuck in my mind. We should not act and behave to be seen. Like sometimes, seeing devotees, even some young youth, when they want to be noticed and seen, especially during kirtans, they'll go up front and just try to be one of the groups and be this great paka, mridanganist or karta playist or kirtani or something. Krishna doesn't want that. It doesn't attract the Lord. We should not act and behave that we want to be seen. That doesn't attract the Lord. What attracts the Lord is we should act and behave in a way that the Lord will be attracted to see us, not we make ourselves be seen. Very, very important point. And how can we understand that? Hearing, chanting, reading, sadhu sangha, devotional service. It's so important. It's really, really so important that we really understand that this is coming straight from Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda telling the devotees at that time. We need both the Bhagavats. And if we look at the last two verses, 101 and 102, it really amazes me. So here, the translation, the verse, Eka adbhuta same kele donhara prakasha ara adbhuta chitta guhara tamakare nasha. Adbhut, wonder, right? The first wonder is that both brothers appear simultaneously. And the other is that they illuminate the innermost depths of the heart. So the first wonder is both the brothers appeared simultaneously, where on the west side, on the horizons of Bengal, which now, in Godadesh, now it's called Mayapur. And the other wonder is they appear to remove the darkness, the destruction from the core of our hearts. And how are they doing that? By the chanting of the holy name, by giving us the example of the two Bhagavats, the spiritual master and the book Bhagavat. And if we go to the next verse, and this was my personal amazing point, there's this. E Chandra Surya Doi Parama Sadaya Jagatera Bhagya Gode Karilaya Hudaya. Translation. These two, the sun and moon, are very kind to the people of the world. Thus, for the good fortune of all, they have appeared on the horizon of Bengal. Purport. The celebrated ancient capital of the Sena dynasty, which was known as Godadesh or Goda, was situated in what is now the modern district of Malda. Later, this capital was transferred to the ninth or central island on the western side of the Ganges and Navadvip, which is now known as Mayapur, and was then called Godapura. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya appeared there And Lord Nityananda came there and joined him from the district of Birbhum. They appeared on the horizon of Gaudadesh to spread the signs of Krishna consciousness. Now, this is the amazing point that when I read it, I had goosebumps. They appeared on the horizon of Gaudadesh, which is now called Mayapur, to spread the signs of Krishna consciousness. And it is predicted that as the sun and the moon gradually move west, the movement they began 500 years ago will come to the Western civilization by their mercy. Isn't that amazing? I'm just getting goosebumps. It's just amazing. They appeared on the horizon of Mayapur to spread the signs of Krishna consciousness. And it is predicted that the sun and the moon will move west, which means they will come to the Western civilization by their mercy. Through who? It happened through Srila Prabhupada. He came to the West by their mercy. This is Caitanya Charitamrta, written, translated, written by Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj, purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is amazing. 540 years ago, this was predicted. And it happened. Prabhupada came when? In 1965. It's predicted. 500 years ago, it was predicted. What more proof do we need? We don't need any more proof from any other religion, any other philosophy. We don't need the proof. It's all here. This is the highest. It's just amazing. What was predicted 540 years ago took place by their mercy through Srila Prabhupada. Because Srila Prabhupada had two Bhagavats in him. He was the Bhagavat, the person, and he brought the book Bhagavat, the Srimad Bhagavatam. 2 in 1, right? He was the living example of all these verses that we have spoken. The two Bhagavats that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda said. And he goes on a purport. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu drive away the 5 kinds of ignorance of the conditioned souls. In the Mahabharata, Udhoyaga Parvat, 43rd chapter, these 5 kinds of ignorance are described. They are accepting the body to be self, making material sense gratifications one's standard of enjoyment, being anxious due to material identification, lamenting and thinking that there is anything beyond the absolute truth. We just spoke about that. There is nothing beyond the absolute truth. The absolute truth is the absolute truth. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to go, oh, I think there's something else besides Krishna beyond. This is it. It's clearly stated in the verse, in the paragraph before. It was predicted. The sun and the moon is Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. They appeared on the horizon of Mayapur, and as they moved to the west, predicted that it's going to come to the Western civilization. What more do we need? The teachings of Lord Chaitanya, I'm going back to the second paragraph, the second sentence, the second last sentence. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya eradicate these 5 kinds of ignorance, whether one sees or otherwise experiences. One should know to simply an exhibition of the Supreme Personality of God's energy. Everything is a manifestation of Krishna. So beautiful. I really like what I really like about this last verse of 102 is that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda appeared simultaneously on the horizon of Mayapur, just to spread the signs of Krishna consciousness, right? And it was predicted 540 years ago that the sun and the moon moving to the west, Mayapur is in the west of India, if you look at the map, west side of it, West Bengal side. Move to the west, predict that it's coming to the Western world. Pure mercy. Srila Prabhupada came to the West. Pure mercy, just to give us all this knowledge. And if we look at the 5 kinds of ignorance, right? Accepting the body to be self. That's the Bhagavad Gita teachings. I, me, mine. It's all about me, what I want, right? The second kind of ignorance, making sense gratification one's standard of enjoyment. Again, Bhagavad Gita teachings. Srila Prabhupada brought that. The more we think that if I can just enjoy the fruit of my senses, that is it. Mode of passion. But it gets us in the mode of ignorance. Being anxious due to material identification. Upadhis. I am this, I am black, I'm white, I'm Indian, I'm Chinese, I'm an American, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an engineer, I'm a whatever, right? We're so anxious of what we want to be, how we are, so we grade our status based on our material identification. And it's so important to us. It's ignorant. Bhagavad Gita teachings. Lamenting. If we see in Bhagavatam, we have been reading about Bhishma Dev passing in the presence of Lord Krishna. Don't lament. We are not the body. Bhagavad Gita teachings. And thinking that there is anything beyond the absolute truth. Sometimes we are, it's like we know this is the absolute truth, but we say, there's got to be something. Something is missing. Krishna is the absolute truth. What else more do we need? And so nicely, Lord Chaitanya came to teach us how to remove these 5 kinds of ignorance, simply engaging our senses in the service of the Lord. Hearing, chanting, reading, devotee association. The ABCD of spiritual life. A, association. B, the books. C, chanting. D, devotional service. Simply following the ABCDs of spiritual life. So to conclude this amazing 7-8 verses, Lord Chaitanya, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj is teaching us that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda appeared on the west side, on the horizons of Mayapur, west of Bengal, predicted 540 years ago that it's going to come to the Western civilization by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And the only way that they came to spread the science of Krishna consciousness. What is that? The chanting of the holy name. And why? To clean our hearts from all the dirt and grime of many lifetimes that we cannot see. We can see the dirt on our hand. We can see a scratch when we get scratched by something. We can see scars on our body. We can see the dirt outside, but we cannot see the dirt inside. In our hearts, we can't. And the only way we can see the dirt in our hearts, for example, we can't see what sickness we have within our bodies unless we go to a doctor. Yes, you have a virus. Yes, you have cold. Yes, you have pneumonia. Yes, you have, you had a heart attack, whatever it is, diabetes, blood pressure. Doctors can see inside our hearts, but can the doctor tell us, you know what? You have layers of dirt on your heart from many lifetimes. The material doctor cannot see that. It's only the spiritual doctor. And Lord Chaitanya says, and that is what they brought to us. The 2 Bhagavats, the book Bhagavat and the person. The key word is and. He did not say or. We need both. We need the book, the Shastra, the scriptures, and the spiritual master. And it's only by their mercy can they help us to see the dirt, because they are the spiritual doctors, to clean our hearts, to clean the mirror of our hearts, to remove all the dirt and the grime, so that we can begin to develop the love of devotional service, the love of chanting, the love of hearing, the love of reading. We can develop that mood and go closer to the Lord, so that the Lord will be attracted to come to us, as opposed to we wanting to be seen by the Lord. Very powerful verses. This was my realization in my thoughts, and I have to say that I was a little hesitant to give this class, because when it comes to Caitanya Charitamrita, for me it's postgraduate level, and I always like to hear from others than me speaking. And I was going to ask my husband, but he inspired me to give the class. So, and I'm very happy that he inspired me to speak on it, because if had I not read about and spoke about this and shared, I wouldn't have been having goosebumps to really see that this was predicted 500 years ago, that the mercy is going to come to the western part of the world. What more proof do we need? We don't need anything. It's all here. So I would like to thank all of you for allowing me to speak and share my thoughts and my realizations. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If there are any questions, any comments, any reflections or takeaways, please do share. We covered a lot in 7 verses. Thank you, dear Krishna. He says, beautiful class. Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to share my realizations and thoughts. Except mine, Prabhu. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Would like to hear any reflections, any thoughts from devotees on this amazing class. I have to say that this last verse of 102 is such a cement for me. Like, it really cemented so many things in my mind. Sometimes it's like I've heard it, but we have to hear it a million times because our minds are so crazy. We have to be reminded. So it's so nice to see that this was predicted 540 years ago, and Srila Prabhupada brought it to us in 1965. Wow, amazing, amazing. Any thoughts, devotees? Any reflections? Any takeaways? Any realizations from this class? And I know we covered quite a bit, 7 to 8 verses. Okay, we have 2 minutes. If there isn't, I would like to make an announcement just to remind them. Oh, yes, Friendship Mama husband. Yes, please go ahead.
The 5 kinds of ignorance, except for her business is called accepting the body to be the self. Because it's a basic thing Srila Prabhupada always said, you're not the body, you're not the body. Sometimes it makes me think, so many problems that's going on around the world, even at the national and international level, is based on accepting the body to be the self. If people could just understand that the soul is the real self, many of the problems actually can be solved. Because accepting the body in the self means then it's material consciousness, therefore, this I want to take, I want to cheat, I want to, all of those things we try to do just to do what? To satisfy the body. Sense gratification is connected with the body. The senses are connected with the body. So although we've heard it so many times, we are not the body, we're not the body, we have to kind of be very, very, very introspective, very deep, deep thinkers about this particular statement, because that is what's causing a lot of problems in the world in the Kali Yuga. That's all I wanted to add to Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because when you started sharing that, it connected to all the other five ignorances. Once we accept the body, then we said, I have to enjoy the senses because it's going to make me happy. And once we start enjoying the senses, then we become anxious. But because I'm this, I have to enjoy this. If because I'm this, I have to enjoy this. And then we start to lament because we're not enjoying the senses. And then we think, okay, there's got to be something beyond Krishna. Like all these ignorances start coming into play. So yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And Lord Caitanya says it's so easy to get rid of this. Just know that we have to feed the soul, just like what Preksha said. We have to feed the soul with the right knowledge. And the only way to feed the soul is by the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. It takes both, not one, but both. Yes. Thank you so much. Any other thoughts? Any other reflections? Any other questions? Just a quick announcement. Would like to remind devotees that we are continuing our Prayers of Lord Caitanya series at the temple, and we will be continuing, we'll be covering the third prayer of Lord Caitanya this Sunday at our Sunday program. So we ask devotees, please humbly request all of you to please come on time, be on time, so we can sing together, chant together, hear together, and dance together. So until then, have a wonderful weekend. Vanchakaptibhyascha kripasindhavevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, devotees. Have a wonderful weekend and look forward to seeing all of you this Sunday.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.